Hey, Jim.
Hey.
So, this is going to give you a kick because I know you're going to like it. I was reading changes, got to the end of the book, like, oh, we're closing up the book, that's great, get ready for the next wave. Let me go back 3 or 4 pages, I missed something. So I went back, read 3 or 4 more pages, like, damn. Alright, no spoilers guys, sorry. So my question is, like everybody in this room, we are all waiting with bated breath for ghost stories. Can you give us a teaser, pretty please?
For ghost stories? Oh, wow. Okay, anybody who doesn't want a teaser, just stick your fingers in your ears or something. Yeah, ghost story is so named because Dresden gets stuck with solving his own murder. But he actually gets sent back to handle it, except there's no body available, so he has to do it as a ghost, which is why it's called Ghost Story. So that's our basic outline for the book. Dresden has to go, and he has to deal with all the laws of being a supernatural spirit and a ghost and so on from the other end of the stick, which is really, I have a great time with it because he's just so not competent at that. Competent generally, but not at that, you know. I think one of my favorite bits about it so far is, when he's learning your basic ghosty stuff, and he says, and I finally understand why it is that ghosts are always howling and moaning when they appear out of the floor or the wall. Passing through that stuff hurts. I mean, it's no great mystery there. But that's what we're looking at in the next book. I haven't even done writing it yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Please. Morning, Jim. How are you? Just a real quick question. I was wondering what your personal take was on what the Sci-Fi Channel, the Sci-Fi Channel, did with their adaptation of the Dresden Files into a television series.
Yeah, I always shortened it into the Syphilis Channel myself. Because really, that's what it looks like. It was an abbreviation of. And I think Shannon noticed that before I did. But now I can't get that out of my head. As far as what the Dresden Files TV show went, could have been worse. As I look back on it, that's kind of where I am. Could have been worse. They could have messed it up much more badly than they did. You didn't see the first treatment. I was actually, when they brought Robert Wolfe in to work on it, he was the one who actually kind of steered it back towards, hey, there's already perfectly good material they use in the books. Why call it the Dresden Files and then not use it? And I don't think anybody agreed with him until David Howe's kid. David Howe went home with a bunch of Dresden swag from the presentation thing, and apparently his kid picked up Stormfront and then read Full Moon and Grave Peril before the weekend was over, and was going off about how great they were. And so I guess then he came back into the next meeting and said, why don't we do it like in the books? And all of a sudden everybody thought that was a fantastic idea. But yeah, I mean, I got to go up and be on the set and be in an episode, which was cool. I got my Stan Lee points. I got to, at one point I got to, they took me up to Comic-Con and had me appear on stage with Paul while they were showing an episode. And then I got to go out to dinner with David Howe and Harry Dresden and Gaius Baltar and Six. David Howe, Harry Dresden, Gaius Baltar are all British, and they all like football. And so they were talking British football at one end of the table. So I just had to man up and chat with Six. And she's like so just depressingly normal and straightforward and level-headed sort of person. We traded pet stories, that kind of thing. But just in case you're wondering.
First, I have to plug my future profession. Reference librarians are your friend.
I'm sorry, I got a bunch of echoes. What?
Reference librarians for future research. They are your friend.
Yes, yes, they are.
My question is, will you put out a collection of your short stories?
Yeah, the collection of the short stories, the first one is called Side Jobs. It comes out in October. That's going to be the one. That's going to be the one featuring there's a new. It's a bunch of those stories that have already been published elsewhere, but they're kind of put together. And then there's a new novella called Aftermath. That's from. Don't feedback me. Okay. That's from Murphy's point of view, and it's set about 45 minutes after the end of Changes. Yeah, I had fun with that, although it was really difficult getting into Murphy's headspace, so it was really rewarding by the time I was done. But yeah, that's the first one. I intended to have all the short stories in that one. There were two that couldn't go in there because of exclusivity clauses in contracts. That they weren't going to be free for another 6 months or a year. And the publisher's like, no, 6 months or a year is a big deal, whatever. So the only thing I can do is write some more short stories until I have enough to do a second collection, which I'll probably call like More Jobs or something, and have all the rest of them and put those all together there at some point. But that's the plan.
Hardcover or paperback?
I think it comes out hardcover first.
Awesome.
Which, you know, I mean, if you want to give your local library a call and say, hey, you should order this so I can check it out. Cool.
At the end of Changes, or rather a little bit before the end, the massive battle scene at Chichen Itza, when Ebenezer does his laying of the cattle move, is that a power of the Blackstaff?
The Blackstaff is what keeps that kind of thing from driving him insane, turning him into a giggling villain. Yeah, you go messing with black magic in the Dresden Files, it's very, very bad for you. At the same time, magic is something that happens because you truly believe when you set out to do it that you should be able to do that sort of thing. And so that kind of says something, that says a few things about Ebenezer that really Harry hasn't run into in any other form, from right there. But yeah, poor guy. He's got a tough job.
My favorite character is probably Bob Skull. And
Bob, an inside joke between me and my writing teacher. I'll tell you about that.
Well, I just wanted to know more about the character and your inspiration for him.
Okay, here we go, yeah. When I got done with, I think chapter 2 or 3 of the book, of Stormfront, and she said, okay, well, this is all right, what are you going to do after this? And I said, well, Dresden's going to have to go, I'm going to give him this kind of research assistant who's going to be, somebody who's very, very knowledgeable about the serious ins and outs, the engineering of magic, if you will. Sort of a cross between a personal assistant, a lab tech, and a PC, that will store information for him and help him out in the lab. And she's like, and it's going to be this character, and she says, okay, that's great. That will be fine. Just make sure you don't make him, you don't create a talking head. Talking head, okay, that's writer jargon for the character who shows up and just dispenses information and vanishes. You see him like in like a lot of 50s bad sci-fi, and the perennial thing that they do is Mr. Scientist shows up and says, well, as you know, Bob, the escape velocity necessary. And it's like, but if Bob knows that, why are you talking to him about it? That doesn't seem right. So that's the character you want to avoid, the talking head character. So I made him a literal talking head named Bob. And my